What I see now is more important is that use of data. You can hear about our world is like more volatile, more uncertain, etc. And actually, people's gut experience, I think, counts for less and less now, because actually we've got so many more interdependencies in our projects, so much more complexity to manage, that actually we've got to use data, because our gut instincts, or even some of our really experienced people, can actually make very much the wrong kind of decision now.
Do you think there is enough being done to truly get the industry to share their data and embrace collaboration? Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Project Flux podcast. Today it's just me, as Yoshi is away on another holiday, but later on in the episode we are joined by David Belshaw. David is the head of project management at Rolls Royce, and he's going to talk all about how he's integrating AI and data into Rolls Royce, and also about his role as the chair of the Project Data Analytics Coalition that works alongside the Project Data Analytics Task Force. But before that, we just wanted to go through the big stories of the week. And again, there's been a lot going on. And actually, right as I'm recording this podcast, we're in the middle of something called the OpenAI 12 Days of Shipmas. But today they've shipped Sora. It's not available in the UK, unfortunately, yet, but it's the text-to-video application that they've been developing and showing off for quite some time. So we'll cover that in more detail next week once we've found a way to get our hands on it. But there was plenty more to talk about in terms of the OpenAI 12 Days of Shipmas that we've had up until this point. We're also going to look at how OpenAI are partnering in the defense sector with anti-drone tech. And then there's also a really cool story, a kind of festive story about how Spotify are using Google's Notebook LM to do their end-of-year wrap-up. And then finally, Microsoft have come out with what they think is coming in 2025. So we'll take a quick look at that. But before that, just a quick shout out to our sponsors, as always, Construct AI, always coming up with new features. And if you haven't checked it out yet, then you really are missing out. They're always adding new features, new training models, new information, new data to really help people in the construction industry get the most out of the latest information. So do check that out. The link's in the show notes and is also in the newsletter. So without further ado, let's start with the big one. So the big one is OpenAI's 8 days of AI, or the 12 days of Shipmas, as they're calling it. And the big first day launch was all around taking the O1 model, which was the reasoning model, out of its preview phase. So now that's now available for all ChatGPT Plus users, which is the $20 a month tier. And it has been improved as well. So I've been playing around with the preview for quite a few months now, but this new model is another level. They seem to have ironed out a lot of the bugs that they had with it, and it's working a lot faster than it was before. It's still not the right model for everything. So, you have to pick and choose what you're using the model for. The O1 is very much for complex reasoning. If you're just getting some help with writing some prose or some information, then it might not be the right model. But if you are really trying to tackle a complex issue, then O1 might be worth trying. And of course, we've got the Canvas feature, which is still in preview as well. So it's a take a pick from the toolbox of different models that we now have available. But the big surprise was, on top of that, they released something called ChatGPT Pro. Now, this is quite a steep hike in cost. It's $200 a month. And the reason it's so high is because the amount of compute that it is using to generate the answers, and because of that, the advanced reasoning goes to another level. So it's really tailored for people looking at very complex tasks, such as sophisticated problem solving, mathematical equations, chemistry, etc. So maybe not needed for a lot of the kind of everyday tasks that we're doing, particularly in the project delivery phase, but it might be. And this is the thing, it's working out where these models shine. But $200 a month is quite a steep increase, and I haven't actually tried it out myself, but I've seen a lot of commentary on X and on social media about the differences that it can do. It's pretty fast for what it does compared to the standard O1 model, and it obviously goes into another level of reasoning, and it really comes into its own when it's managing large data sets or where you require some really intricate reasoning, like I say, some kind of mathematical reasoning and what have you. But it's just another option to have, and it might be that you need to pay out $200 a month just once for a particular issue that you're dealing with. But I would say for 90% of project professionals, probably the Plus is absolutely fine, especially with this new model that's now been released that seems to be a cut above what it was before. So it's still really, really cool, and it's kind of another battle in the whole AI war. Now everyone's going to be looking at Google, going to be looking at Claude as to how they respond to this, because it's the first time we've gone to a quite significant price hike in these large language models at $200 a month. It's enough to make it very, very difficult for the average consumer to spend, but not for an enterprise or for a company. There's loads of links in the newsletter that we published early this morning. We've got the announcement from OpenAI. We've got a couple of deeper dives into what it means and some comparisons in there. So do check that out. And as I said, this is just the beginning. You were right in the middle of this 12 days of Shipmas. Sora, which was the text to video, was released today, which I haven't had the chance to play with. I'm going to need to find a way of getting access to it as I'm in the UK, and I believe it's only in the US at the moment. And then there's plenty more coming from OpenAI. So we'll keep you posted. If you want kind of everyday updates, then do sign up to our LinkedIn page where we'll try and make announcements as and when they come. But this time next week, hopefully we'll be able to talk about what the other days of the 12 days of Shipmas has brought. So that was the first story that's well worth investigating. But staying on the OpenAI theme, there was also a story about them starting to partner in the defense industry. So they partnered with somebody called Anduril Industries, who are a defense technology company. And their whole purpose is to enhance counter-drone systems. And obviously drones are particularly important at the moment with everything that's going on in the world. And they enhance these counter-drone systems with AI-powered capabilities. And this collaboration really leverages OpenAI's models, their more advanced models, to upgrade Anduril systems. And it just makes it smarter at identifying, tracking and neutralizing drone threats. And this is their first kind of foray into the defense sector, but it shows how OpenAI are looking at these partnerships across industries. So that's the first. I'm sure it won't be the last. I'm sure they'll be looking at other industries to partner with and to showcase the power of these models. And it kind of shows how it can, we use it to help us with our day-to-day work, but it can also be used at these very high-stake environments and also for commercial applications. So in some senses, there's no barrier to what these models can be used with. The fact that it's being used for defense, the fact that it's being used in creative industries, or the fact that it's being used within robotics just shows just how versatile these LLMs are, kind of augmenting a lot of what we're doing. And this is what we've talked about a lot, is the fact that these technologies can help augment a process, and that's very much what's happening with this Anduril Industries. Of course, it does conjure up images and worries about where this is going. I mean, at what point do we hand off the ability in terms of defense for AI to make decisions? And that's something which is, for a lot of people, the kind of cutting point where it's no longer augmenting what we're doing, and it's making decisions, and it all gets quite scary. But I don't think we're quite there yet. They're using these models to help answer questions, to help counter these drone systems that are out there. So at the moment, it's very much a positive kind of step, but we do have to keep an eye on where this is going. But again, lots of breakdowns within the newsletter for you to look into, and we'll keep you updated with how that particular story is advancing over the course of the next year. So looking into the next story, this is a bit of a fun one as we're coming up to Christmas. So anyone who has Spotify or Apple Music will be familiar with the end of year wrap-ups. And I'm actually an Apple Music subscriber, and we get this nice little kind of animation that shows us what we've been listening to, etc., etc. And Spotify have taken it one step further this year, and they've actually partnered. I don't know whether they've partnered, they're using the technology. They're using the Google Notebook LM, which we've talked about quite a lot, and the podcast feature to create an even better experience for listeners. And they really have, I think, surpassed the Apple guys in this one. Not often that happens, but in this case, I think it's created this little podcast recap of the listening habits, and everyone's talking about it. And a lot of musicians I know are talking about it because rather than just having to look at some stats, you're actually getting it played back to you by this quite engaging podcast that comes out from Notebook LM. So it's just a really cool way, and just another example. On the one hand, we've just talked about something quite serious, which is defense and how AI is helping in the defense industry, all the way to how it can help in quite a light-hearted, nice manner that helps people engage with their passion. So it's well worth checking out. If you're a Spotify user, you should be able to get hold of that. If you're not, then you'll be a bit like me, feeling a little bit jealous right now that you're with Apple Music and you're not getting it. But you can do it yourself, I think. Notebook LM is available to everyone, so you could just take your Apple Music stats and put it into Notebook LM if you liked. But again, loads more within the newsletter to talk about and go into that in a bit more detail. And just a really nice example, I think, of how AI is being used it's not earth-shattering, but it's a really nice little touch that's got people talking. The last story I wanted to cover before we get into the interview with David Belshaw is all around Microsoft's view of where 2025 is going. So we're getting to that time of the year where the roundups are happening and everyone's making their predictions about what 2025 holds. And there's a lot of talk about agents, which we've talked about a lot on the podcast. And I think inevitably that's going to play a very big role in the way that AI shapes the environment in 2025. But they've actually done a full report, and it's actually very, very good. They do talk about AI agents, but they talk about 6 key trends to watch. And I'm not going to do the full report justice now, but I'll just kind of highlight those 6 key trends. So the first one is the age of agents with greater autonomy. So AI agents are here. It's not like we're not using them now, but it's going to be the greater autonomy and these agentic workflows that become more and more complex and more capable of handling tasks and also handling tasks independently. So that's going to obviously improve efficiency and free up time, but there's going to be this balance between how much do we want to free up time and improve efficiency versus how much do we want to hand off to the agents. And I think there's going to be some missteps along the way, is my view, in 2025, when people realize that we're probably handing off too much. We still need humans in the loop. But the cool thing about these agentic workflows is you can build that in. You can build that into the workflow that actually needs a human to sign these parts off. I think there's going to be a bit of toing and froing on that, but it's really cool that Microsoft's seen that too. And the second one was enhanced memory and reasoning, and really, really timely, as we've just seen that OpenAI announcement on the enhanced reasoning model. So they're predicting AI systems that better understand context and deliver more sophisticated insights. And I think that's inevitable. We've got now ChatGPT 01 and we've got ChatGPT Pro, but that's in December 2024. Undoubtedly, there's going to be other models coming out during the course of 2025. Does that mean ChatGPT 5? Don't know. There's lots of rumors that has hit some problems, so it might just be variances of the current model, but even that is showing very, very increased usage and increased results from just being able to tweak some of these existing models. So I don't think that's going to slow down anytime soon. I guess the big question is, there going to be a big paradigm shift in the year? Is there going to be another huge breakthrough that changes things? So that'd be one to work out for, but undoubtedly they're going to get better at understanding context and being able to deliver more sophisticated insights. Then another thing it comes up with is tackling global challenges. So there are a lot of issues in the world: climate change, healthcare, other pressing issues, wars, etc. It looks at how AI might help to address some of these challenges. Now, of course, with climate change and everything, it's a bit chicken and egg, because we know that AI uses huge amounts of compute power, and this new ChatGPT Pro model, the reason it's so expensive is because it's using so much compute, which is actually detrimental to the environment. But the hope is that over time, the AI will be able to address some of these climate changes. And Microsoft are basically saying we might see some of that start to happen in 2025. And we might see AI starting to help with some of the healthcare issues and longevity of life, et cetera, et cetera. And even the story that we just covered about Anduril, shows how AI is being used, hopefully to help in conflict and hopefully to resolve conflict as well, because the best way to resolve conflict is as a deterrent. So if we're able to develop better and better defenses, then that might actually result in, resolving some of these conflicts, especially with the new presidency starting in America. The fourth key trend that Microsoft say to look out for is about this integration into daily life. So at the moment, AI, we're still really, really early on the journey. There's still a long way to go to get people to adopt it, because at the moment it is a bit of a niche for some people, something that they have to reach out to get to use. Whereas what Microsoft is saying, it's going to become more and more blended into everyday workflows. The use of Copilot within the Microsoft suite, the use of agents within Microsoft Teams, a lot of it will start being integrated into your everyday experiences. There was quite an interesting piece that I saw over the course of the week, which is, I think it was from the head of Airbnb, who said that actually if you look at your apps, for the average user, most of those apps are exactly the same as they were before the advent of ChatGPT and the large language models. A lot hasn't changed for people in reality, but that might start changing as more and more of these technologies get integrated into your everyday apps. And I think that's what Microsoft's getting at with this. It won't be it will just be, the next revision of the app will have a certain AI feature that you can start using, and it just then becomes part of your everyday life. And we know, for instance, that Apple are starting to integrate that into their hardware with Apple Intelligence, although the results have been mixed. But I think it's an inevitability, and I don't think it's something that just happens in 2025. It will just happen more in 2025, and it will continue to happen. The fifth one that Microsoft talk about is the focus on safety and security. So this is really important as these systems are getting more and more powerful, and we're reaching those AI safety levels that we talked about a few weeks back, which is level 3, where it becomes a little bit more risky. Never is it more important than to really consider the ethical safety and how this aligns with society's values. There is a lot of good with these AI systems. There's a lot to be optimistic about, and I'm a natural optimist, so I look at it with an optimistic lens, but you have to be cognizant of what's going on out there and the way that some of the bad actors are utilizing these AI systems, whether that's for election fraud or for scams and what have you. So it's going to be a very, very important part of 2025. And again, it's going to be a bit of a tightrope between developing these systems and using and adopting them, but whilst at the same time focusing on the safety and security. And then the last one they talk about is the sector-wide transformation. So industry-specific innovations, driving efficiency and reshaping how we work, which is kind of a combination of all the other ones that we've talked about. And there'll be some industries that go faster than others, inevitably. But we will see some big changes in certain industries. And I think that's already starting to happen in 2024, but I think we're going to get some real use cases in 2025. So those were the 6. I was surprised actually that they didn't talk about robotics, because I think robotics is going to play a big part, AI-powered robotics. But the full report does go into things in a lot more detail. So I do encourage you to download that. You can get that from the newsletter. So those were the big stories. The only other things to cover is looking at the Project Data Analytics Task Force events for 2025. We're already putting the schedule together, and we've got a great one in January the 15th. We have Oracle coming to talk about how their AI meets construction and engineering, which is going to be a hybrid event, either in person or you can sign up and view online. So that's all in the newsletter. Again, so you sign up to the newsletter and you can sign up for that event. And in February, we haven't yet announced this, but just as a kind of sneak peek for everyone, we've got a fantastic event in partnership with EY, where we're going to look at their recently released report, AI in Infrastructure. So keep an eye out for all the events that we'll be putting on throughout 2025. I think that probably covers all the big news of the week. Next week, we have Yoshi back for a very special event as we start rounding up 2024. It's been an incredible year. And all I can say to all the listeners is thank you so much for tuning in, listening. The fact that we're getting more and more people listening is really heartwarming. But do share it. Do share these podcasts with as many people as you can. Because that's why we do it. We do this simply just to get the message across about how this technology is going to impact both how you deliver projects and your productivity. And if you've got any suggestions, comments, please feel free just to get in touch with us. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to us on the PDA Task Force website. We'll be very, very keen to hear suggestions, because we've been doing the podcast now for about 9 months. And yeah, we think we're hitting the spot for most people, but we can obviously improve it. So, and that's really what we want to do. We want to improve it for the listeners. So any ideas, just drop us a line. So now we're going to go on to a brilliant conversation that I had with David Belshaw. David Belshaw, Head of Project Management at Rolls Royce, and also the Chair of the Project Data Analytics Coalition.
Project Flux is here.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for joining us on the Project Flux podcast today. How are you this evening?
Hi, James. I'm really well, and it's great to be here.
I know we've had a few troubles between us trying to get this date in the diary, but I'm really, really pleased we got it in before the end of 2024.
Excellent.
And the reason for that is because hopefully we can get you back in 2025 and we won't have you twice.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, that would be great. Let's hope it goes well.
Good. Well, we met each other, I don't know, a good year or so ago at at one of the hackathons, I think, was when we met each other. And I was lucky enough to be at the hackathon that you hosted yourself at the Rolls Royce Derby headquarters recently, which was a fantastic event, and we'll come on to that later. But before we get into the hackathon and all things around the Project Data Analytics Coalition, can you just tell us about your journey? Because you've had an incredible career leading large-scale projects across industries. So if you could just tell us about your journey into project management and what drew you into this field initially.
Yeah, no problem. So I actually started as a mechanical engineer out of Edinburgh University. And I was actually sponsored by the MOD. And while I was at the MOD, I started working on projects, and that really got me interested into kind of the business side of engineering and doing some pretty incredible things for the military. And then I actually joined Rolls Royce as an engineering graduate. So I wanted to kind of develop my engineering skills and acumen at Rolls Royce, which was a great company to do it in. And I did that for about 5 years. So I did a lot of engineering around turbo machinery. And then actually I took a role as program manager back in 2016. And that's where I got really into managing projects. Some of the first projects I had were actually turbo machinery related, which worked really well. And that's kind of where it all started for me. I kind of got the bug from managing that first program, had quite a few different projects all at the same time at different phases of the life cycle. Some really big challenges to solve, but really enjoyed it. And from there, I really kind of was good at the data side. So kind of project controls was a natural fit for me. I did that on one of our biggest programs. That went well. And then I actually left Rolls Royce. So at the time, there was quite a lot of changes going on. So I thought, right, I'm going to just see what opportunities are out there. Ended up going to Jaguar Land Rover for not that long in the end. It didn't really work out for me for a few different reasons. And then actually came back to Rolls Royce to work in the PMO in 2020, and I've been there ever since. And yeah, really passionate about project management, really passionate about project controls, and now really passionate about how we can use AI and data analytics to transform the way we do project management.
Yeah, well, you're a man after my own heart, because it was a similar journey for me, really, and always seeing this potential of data and AI. But I think it's almost like the tech has caught up with us now. But I was interested in something you just said there. You talked about, the challenges within the project management industry, almost like we've all experienced that. We know there's challenges, but do you think, did that draw you to it? Was that like some kind of red rag to a bull in terms of, I need to solve this problem, or did that put you off in any way?
So for me, kind of problem solving is something I really enjoy. So with my engineering background, kind of learning kind of what levers to pull to solve a problem or how to solve a kind of engineering problem. And it was really transferable into project management. So I really like solving problems. I really like trying to prove something can be done rather than can't be done. So for me, it was like a natural fit. So I think it wasn't something that I didn't go into project management to solve problems. I'm just a natural problem solver, if that makes sense. And I enjoy it.
It's a perfect industry if you're looking to solve a problem, because, when we're dealing with these extremely complex projects, it's an inevitable part of it. And I mean, from my perspective, I remember always thinking, why are we not using the data? Yeah. Why are we repeating the same mistakes over and over again? The data's available. Did you have similar kind of thoughts around?
For me, it was kind of a no-brainer, but I think what I see now is more important is that use of data, because actually you can hear about our world is like more volatile, more uncertain, etc. And actually people's gut experience, I think, counts for less and less now, because actually we've got so many more interdependencies in our projects, so much more complexity to manage, that actually we've got to use data, because our gut instincts, or even some of our really experienced people, can actually make very much the wrong kind of decision now.
Yeah.
So for
yeah.
me, like, it is fundamental to what we do, and we have to use it. And actually, we've got some pretty good data in some areas, so why wouldn't we?
Yeah, we have, exactly. You know, I've talked about it on the podcast quite a few times around this kind of inherent belief that experience equals kind of certainty. And yes, experience counts for a lot. But when we're dealing with so much data on
Yeah,
these projects, it can be misleading sometimes. And you can say, well, my gut feel means something. And I'm not saying get rid of the gut feel, but you can use that in combination with the data
yeah,
to validate your gut feel, because it's not always right. I know that, you know, from me, I've been surprised when I've had a gut feel, looked at the data and it says the opposite. And then you can have a conversation, right? It's like, actually, is my gut feel right, or is the data right? But what, you know, as I said at the beginning, we kind of met with the hackathons and the Project Data Analytics Task Force, which I'm now chairing. And then from that has spun a new initiative, which is the Project Data Analytics Coalition, which is incredibly exciting. And I think you're chairing that, aren't you? And you're a big advocate for this. But can you just describe what the Project Data Analytics Coalition is?
So it's a group of predominantly clients and soon to be our strategic delivery partners, i.e. our supply chain, that are really going to work together and collaborate to work together on how we're going to use data analytics and AI in project management. There's just so much to go at, so much to learn, and actually it's going at such a pace that to go it alone just isn't an option. So one of the reasons I started the Data Analytics Coalition is all about kind of realizing actually some of the different people or different companies I was dealing with were actually all facing the same problems, and they were all spending time and effort solving the same problems. And really, it was about imagining a state where one company solves a problem, shares that with another, rather than both creating the same solution to the same problem, and imagining how much faster we could go if we're all working together to improve everyone rather than just focusing on ourselves. And I guess we started the Project Analytics Coalition back in March, and already I'm astounded at how similar we are and how similar the projects are between us. And actually, even just the working together, kind of sharing our challenges, helps to kind of validate your own situation, helps you
Yeah.
understand more. Not only that, we actually are starting now to start kind of sharing solutions. So very soon we'll have a schedule health tool, which will be open source for everyone. We've got different aspects of the coalition doing different solutions, some around risk, some around KPI reporting and integration. And we're just now starting to see that snowball effect of people really seeing the value in what we're doing, and also starting to get more and more people interested, more people involved. But it is a movement, right? So it's
Yeah.
a real, like, the people that get it really get it. And you start to think, like, why have we been operating by ourselves for so long? And why didn't we do this sooner? But it's also like it's both exciting and quite scary. People that are new to AI don't really understand it, could be quite off put by it. So another part of it is actually making sure we're all kind of upskilling ourselves to make sure we understand it, and we're developing the tools and capability in our own teams to really make the most of it. So yeah.
Well, it's, you know, when you put it like that, and I'm very familiar with it, but when I hear it back, it all sounds so obvious. But of course, the industry's very reluctant to collaboration sometimes, even though it says that it collaborates. And you're right, we all have the same problems. You know, there's a notion that every project's different, so therefore we can't learn from it. But the reality is, parts of that project are all the same. And it sounds like what you found from your journey with the coalition so far is there is a lot of shared experience that we can all gain from. And I just love the whole open source kind of ethos of creating a solution to a problem and then sharing it with the rest of the community, because we can all benefit from it. And it's not a case of, you know, taking your toys home so no one else can play with it. It's like we can all grow if we all use it, right?
Yeah, I don't
So
want to
it's
diminish.
fantastic.
Yeah, I don't want to diminish project management as a discipline itself, but it's not like engineering in terms of the amount of IP and
Yeah.
difficulty to create a product, right? So managing projects should be simple. Most of project management is actually kind of common sense. So I think in PM we've got quite a good, like, because of that, it enables kind of people to share stuff. Like no one's change process is going to be fundamentally radically different to someone else's, right? You can read the APM
Exactly.
guide and read the book and talk about change management. That is all we're applying. So yeah, I think it helps being in our kind of industry in the discipline of PM, because it's just not as sensitive as
Yeah, and I think there's a belief with some people that they put the sensitivity tag on things to say, oh, we can't share because of sensitive data. But when you strip it back, yes, of course, everyone's got some sensitive data, but that doesn't mean you can't share anything. It means, okay, there is some sensitive stuff that you've got to put on the side, but there's a whole load of stuff, probably 90-80% of the stuff that you can share. And when I was at the hackathon, I can't remember, when was that? Was it
October.
October already? Wow, this year's gone so
Yeah.
fast. But it was, for me, I've been to a few of these hackathons, and what I saw this time was a step up because of the AI capabilities that are coming, particularly from the large language models, a real step up on what is being able to be produced even in a 2-day period. But the challenge was still the data sharing. Sometimes it was people having to use synthetic data or historical data rather than new data because it's a real struggle to get it. So when it comes to that data sharing, what do you think the barriers are? What's holding people back? And I suppose a follow-on question to that is, how is the coalition tackling that? How is it looking to overcome that issue?
So a couple of things. So at the moment, what we're sharing isn't really around data. It's more about sharing the solutions. So we're not there to kind of share each other's kind of sensitive project performance data. We're not there to try and catch people out by saying, actually, your projects are going to be late or even more over budget. It's more about kind of developing the solutions together and sharing the solutions. So people might need to like adapt the data pipeline for some of the solutions that we create. They'll certainly need to feed their own data into it, but fundamentally at the minute it's more about sharing the solutions, sharing like the approach, the kind of data architecture, the lessons learned on how to like deploy a cool AI tool or data analytics tool, not so much about sharing the actual data themselves. Of course, we definitely support the idea around data trusts, so kind of sharing data in a kind of secure way with the right guardrails around it, because I do think we'll massively benefit the more people that do find ways of sharing data in an appropriate way. But we're not quite there yet, and I think people do find that a bit harder because I think they're really kind of worried about kind of what other data might say. They might be worried that actually their data quality is not as good as what other people's are. And I think
Yeah,
really it's more about the fear of the unknown. It's like, people are quite precious about their projects and how they're doing.
they are.
They don't want someone, particularly when they talk about AI, that can like analyze the data in seconds and like reveal some big surprise they weren't aware of. So I think it's a bit about the unknown and people being kind of quite wary about that. And also we don't really know how well each other, like how capable each other is. So we don't really want to be embarrassed to find actually, wow, like I thought we were really good, really mature project management function. Actually, we find out we're not so good at all. But I
That's a big
think,
one there, I think.
yeah, but I think people have got to see that as an opportunity. So if we actually do share more and we find actually we have got loads to develop, but in that kind of collaboration environment and around the way we kind of behave as a group of companies in the coalition, it's like a safe space. So if you realize actually, yeah, I do need to do more, like we aren't as mature, but I've got all these other companies that have already done it and they can help me do it and they can really understand what I'm going through because they're in the same position I am. That's like a massive opportunity,
Of course
which
it is.
actually, if we didn't have the coalition, people aren't going to develop the closeness of those relationships to actually do that. So for me, even if we did like share our raw data, which I don't think we would without the right guardrails, it is still a massive opportunity to learn from each other.
Absolutely. And I think a big part of it is trust. You mentioned the point that everyone thinks, oh, am I going to be embarrassed by sharing my data? And I can almost guarantee that everyone is thinking that their data is worse than it actually is in comparison to their competitors.
Yeah.
Everyone's facing this issue. I've spoken to very, very large consultants, very large contractors, SMEs. I don't think anyone's data is any better than others to compound the problem. And I think what's so wonderful about what you're doing with the coalition is you're tackling this issue, which is about the third parties, because more and more people are using these third party systems. I won't mention the names, but we all know who they are. Well, we're absolutely throwing data into it without a second thought.
Yeah.
Whereas for some reason, as soon as someone mentions, would you like to share unsensitive data with your peers or competitors? They won't do it. But to me, that's a bigger danger, because all you're doing is you're giving your data away to a third party company whose main motive is going to be monetization, rather than what you're doing, which is you're trying to say to do the coalitions about sharing our data for the betterment of the industry and for society as a whole. And by the way, whilst we do that, we can all make a bit more money ourselves too.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, if we can deliver projects better, so I'm talking like earlier, like on budget, deliver more benefits, it will lead to more projects, right? So overall, we will create this kind of, more exciting projects for everyone. So that's really what it's all about.
Absolutely. You mentioned a few examples of some of the work that the coalition's doing. Can you go into maybe one of those in a bit more detail about, what would like a tangible output be from the work you're doing with the coalition?
So a couple of like Rolls Royce examples, because I feel a bit more comfortable talking about those first. But we have digitized our processes for change control and also scope management. So we use digital artifacts with workflows that are dynamic. So for example, our change process, depending on the type of change, will follow a different workflow. By doing that, we've effectively completely removed all the transactional waste through change control. We have completely automated assurance. We know who raised a change request, what step it's at, how long it's been there, and what the next action is to do on a change. We also get completely automated reporting, because effectively our Power BI is linked to the SharePoint list where all those changes are kind of saved. And that has eliminated a huge amount of waste in kind of managing effectively change. So we had some people that were full-time managing change control on programs. That has now disappeared. We do still have like a nominated point of contact, but now it's the system kind of runs itself. The other benefit we get from digitization of forms and workflows is we can actually start to understand like the process capability of a process. So like what step takes the longest? How can we improve it? What can we do to like narrow in on how we can improve the overall value stream of change? So we've done that now across quite a significant multi-billion-pound portfolio that we started in October. It's really exciting to be able to do that. That change control also links to our budget process. So again, something that is quite an admin-heavy task, we've now kind of reduced to really the few value-added and essential steps that we need to do for control. And we're not to throw any more people at it. It's now got less people, more control, more understanding, more insight. We're also developing, as I said, kind of an open source schedule health tool. That primarily goes around reducing our license costs. Everyone uses different software. It can be quite expensive for quite a simple task. Most people could calculate schedule health in Excel, but we wanted to save a bit of money, but also give every single planner in our business access to schedule health, rather than relying on a certain amount of lead planners to run reports for them. We've now been able to unlock that for everyone, which again is quite exciting. And then I'm sure you won't mind me saying, but Thales, one of our other members of the coalition, they did a hack at the October hack in Derby, and they analysed some data around risk mitigations. So they took some dummy data and they basically had a hack challenge to look at if those mitigations were effective or not. For me, that's almost like one of the holy grails of risk management right there. They wanted to solve. They've taken that and over the last few weeks have started to kind of develop it further, productionize it, and to really get great insight into kind of how what risk mitigations are the most effective. For me, it's just outstanding. They've really got like the weight of the PMO behind it, and actually as a PMO, they are kind of really kind of, for me, leading the way. And you saw what they were doing from the outside. That's a PMO you want to be part of, right? You want to be part of like the cutting edge.
Absolutely.
And for me, it's just amazing. And actually they joined the coalition not even at the start. They kind of joined it in June and have got stuck in, came to the hack in October, and I've started to see some really cool outputs from that already. So that's really exciting.
It's so cool. I mean, I love hearing stories like this, and it's the testament right there to Thales and Rolls Royce working together, and you being inspired by them being inspired by you, and all the other members of the coalition. And then the other thing is I'm talking to you about this, and I'm thinking, so many people say the so what about AI or data? Where's the examples? But you're making it happen. There's real examples, real change happening. And what I love about your approach is that you are looking at some of the harder, and a lot of people really struggle, like looking at the work workflows. But by doing that, you are setting yourself up for the future as well, because of course, we've got the evolution of AI coming with agents and everything. And the whole basis of agentic workflows is making sure that the workflows and the kind of the basics are there, which you've got. Even though what you've done is incredibly cool, it's going to get even cooler next year, I reckon.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It does feel odd that you're working on something now and kind of learning how something works, and then in the future you'll be able to prompt some kind of software which will create you like full data models, full visualizations,
Yeah.
can do tasks for you. But at the same time, I'm quite passionate about learning, and like my team that are on the data analytics apprenticeship that I'm on are all really enjoying understanding how it works. And they're positioning themselves for a future where actually these AI tools and agents, etc., are there to help us. They're people that will really understand how they work, and the kind of, for them, it's a great opportunity to be able to do that now, as well as in a few years when it'll be just there, just like that.
Well, I forgot you were doing the level 4 course, which
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of doing. And it's such an eye opener, isn't it? Because it's one thing kind of reading about it, but doing it makes you think about it in a totally different way. So, I mean, from the level 4 course that you're doing, what's kind of been the biggest benefit for you?
For me personally, I'm doing it really because I want to lead Project Analytics in Rolls Royce, and I want to lead it with the coalition across the industry. It's so new as a field and so exciting. I really wanted to get a good understanding of the fundamentals. But for me, I guess I'm in a cohort, and I'm with a cohort with some people from United Utilities, they're part of the coalition. I'm part of a cohort with some MOD people, they're part of the coalition. Some National Highways members who have been involved in hacks for some time, and others. And we're about kind of just almost halfway through, and we started to talk around kind of what we're doing for our projects. And it's amazing to see what people are doing from what they've learned on the apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I've created some kind of Power BI dashboards, which I've never done before, but it's something that I now use like every month to understand the health of the people capability in my function. So it's really useful. It doesn't take any time, and I can get all the insight now basically for free. And I've done some stuff myself on how we manage kind of key milestones. And again, that's been really interesting, and learning some of the stuff around the apprenticeship, around stuff like, what the different data types are, how I need to make sure they're consistent for like software to kind of work, like by applying it and seeing those mistakes happen and how to rectify it. It's been like really rewarding and really enjoyable as well.
I found it very rewarding too.
Yeah, at heart, I am still a project controls geek, so I really like data and I really like solving problems as well. So it is perfect for me. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is amazing what you can actually do with the experimentation. And you don't have to be on an apprenticeship for those listening
No.
who are thinking, how do I get stuck in? The apprenticeship's great and qualifications are great, but actually just mucking about with these tools.
Absolutely.
And there's so many of them available now, even if it's just a large language model and playing around with it is a really, really good way of sort of enabling yourself to push the boundaries and work out what it's capable of, because it's very, very difficult to describe. I guess going on a bit of a tangent, but one of the fears of mine, and I'd like your view on this, is that things are progressing at such a pace. So now we're talking about things like agentic workflows, and we're talking about sort of the next evolution, AGI. Do you think there's a risk that if people don't get stuck in and start learning about this, that there's going to be a gap created and it's going to be too hard for them to get into this world? Or do you think there's always going to be an entry point?
I think there's always going to be the need for people on projects. And I'm not like an AI expert, James. I'm kind of getting involved, and I am an apprentice myself, right? So I'm experimenting myself. So kind of doing some work, kind of playing around. But I can see the pace of change is so fast. And when you can start to see and connect the dots between how like agentic AI will help us and how AGI could potentially change everything again, it is both scary and exciting.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think for me, I can't really answer that question. I'm not an expert, but I would rather be in a position where I have that understanding myself than like leave the risk of not knowing how it works and not being involved in not kind of developing that understanding. So for me, it's a matter of risk. So, like, you can either get involved, kind of play with AI, understand what it can do, and it could potentially pay off massively, or you can not get involved, be completely out of your depth in the future, and really struggle to kind of understand how you can apply your knowledge in a way which AI can use and incorporate, I wouldn't want to be that second option.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's not that difficult to keep yourself up to speed with it, which is why we do these podcasts and newsletters.
Yeah.
Big plug there. But it is genuinely the reason, because, I found it all a bit overwhelming sometimes. So it was just a case of, how do I condense this all down? And, you don't have to invest hours. You don't have to do an apprenticeship. You can just sort of play around with these things. And the real reason is, my kind of next question is around AI, digital tools. The whole point of them is to make processes leaner. But what's the most persistent problem in project management that you think that this kind of technology can solve with? Is there one particular thing that you think it can hone in on and really crack, and that's going to be that 80-20 rule, really change the game for delivering successful projects?
I think the field within PM which will see the biggest benefit is planning. Now, obviously, there are some companies already that have kind of AI software around planning, but I think there's so much to go at. And for me, kind of plans and schedules at the heart of everything we do in project management. So being able to estimate them better, forecast better, predict better, understand how our schedule is predisposed to variance or risk is just crucial. So for me, planning is the area which I think will benefit the most. And I still think there will be a role for the planner, but I just think all of these tools that are already out there are really going to kind of augment, massively support the planner in doing the really value added stuff, rather than kind of doing the scheduling aspect or just the completion of kind of codes or tools, making sure selected the right calendar, that kind of thing. This is more about kind of fundamental kind of planning and getting the right outcomes when we think getting the right things done when we said we would.
Yeah.
So for me, that would be the biggest area.
Well, I mean, and I've asked this question to a few people, and it's a lot of people say, schedule's the most important. And as an ex-QS myself, I agree, because everything is dependent on time. The cost is dependent on time. The biggest factor in escalating costs is always time. So if you can control the time by getting the schedule correct, then you're inevitably going to improve the cost, and you're going to improve the quality as well. I think there's a lot of agreement in that. And also because it is very data led, in terms of we should know how long a certain activity takes, and we should be able to learn as we do it more and more about what things we have to do to make that more productive, if you like, or get the most out of it, increase the value. And that's where the AI comes in. And I think working for a company like Rolls Royce is fantastic, because you've been leading the way for many years. But what role do you see Rolls Royce playing in setting the standard for project management in the future?
So it's not something really kind of ever set out to do, but I have found that I've got quite a lot of interest in kind of some of my kind of LinkedIn posts from people I talked in the function, that kind of seeing the kind of stuff we're doing in the coalition. So it's never like the intent. I think I would like to contribute, but it's something that I think will happen quite naturally. It's not something I'm trying to kind of put Rolls Royce out there, but through the coalition.
That's the best way.
Together.
That's the best way. Organic
Yeah.
Organic kind of use is
but
the best way.
Definitely kind of keen to kind of share what we're doing, so others can benefit, and also others can help us as well, because by no means have we got everything fixed. We've got loads and loads of stuff to do, but we are doing some pretty cool stuff, and it's nice to share those things, but also nice to see what other companies are doing. And like I said, all the coalition members are all doing something that someone else isn't doing, and it is really exciting to kind of see collectively, when we bring that all together, what the outcomes will be. So yeah, definitely there to kind of share and help. But
I think it's important when a company like with the stature of Rolls Royce gets involved with this. It does set a mark. It does, and people do set up and take notice. So I think what you're doing with sharing the experience by using these channels like LinkedIn is really important, because as I said at the beginning, we've been talking about AI data analytics for a long time, and the biggest comeback I still have is, and give me some examples, give me some case studies, whereas you've actually got those case studies, which is really cool. And just before we finish up, I've got one more question before we finish up, but where can people find out more about the Project Data Analytics Coalition?
So you're probably best to follow me on LinkedIn, or follow one of the members of the coalition. Post quite often, so you'll kind of see the people I tag in, so follow those people. And we also have a website which is on the PDA Task Force website, so you can check that out as well. But yeah, probably the best bet for now is probably contact with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, I'll put all those links will go in the show notes.
Yeah,
and so the Project Data Analytics, and it's probably worth talking about how the task force and the coalition integrate. So I chair the task force, David chairs the coalition. The task force is all about spreading the word, partnership with academia. Our mission really is making people understand what's out there and giving people a hand, which is why we do podcasts like this, as to how do they get started in this and what's happening out there. Whereas what David does, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the actual doing, actually getting together with other like-minded people for the doing. So we do host on the Project Data Analytics Task Force website, we do host a lot of information about what the coalition are doing. So I will put a link to that in the show notes. But seriously, if you're listening, do follow David as well. He's got a really, really great presence on LinkedIn and shares some really, really cool stuff. In fact, I was just looking at one today with your, you share some cool stuff, and you shared some stuff about the new OpenAI O1 model, didn't you? About, I think there was a quote saying that it's better than, we haven't achieved AI which is better than any human at any task, but we've got an AI that's better than most humans at most tasks, right? Or something like that. I'll probably totally bastardize that quote, but you know the sentiment. And that really kind of resonated with me, because that's the point, isn't it? It doesn't have to be perfect at everything, but if it can get up to a certain level that you've got this assistant at your side that's doing, it's great at general knowledge, at just anything that you might need a helping hand with, that's got to be a benefit.
Yeah, genuinely, kind of almost every day I'm kind of using just ChatGPT just to help me with a certain task. Obviously not putting any kind of sensitive data in there, but even on an improvement project, like help me create a comms plan for this project. Here are the different types of stakeholders, here what their kind of challenges would be. And it kind of helps you create a plan which you could do by yourself, but it would take so much longer. And it's so good just straight out the kind of box. So yeah, I really encourage people, have a play, because it can really make a huge difference to what you do.
Yeah.
And the results you achieve. So yeah, definitely recommend it to everyone.
And I love that, using it, I call it as your thought partner, rather than just saying, put a prompt into it as rubbish, I'm not going to use it again. You've got to treat it like you would do a human. If it's giving you a rubbish response, it's probably because your prompt wasn't right and you haven't given it good enough instructions. So try again, go back. In fact, we've got a really good episode probably in the new year, I think it is, with a guy called Jeff Woods, who wrote a book called The AI Driven Leader, where he talks about how you can utilize AI as a thought partner rather than just a product that does a very narrow thing. It is almost, treat it like an assistant that sits on, a free assistant that's awake 24 hours a day and just helps you with stuff. It could be any stuff. So it's great to hear you using it in that role. One last question for me. We always like to end with a little bit of a devil's advocate question, and we kind of covered it, but I just want to sort of narrow in a bit on this kind of enthusiasm around data analytics and AI in project management. Can't be denied there's a lot of enthusiasm, but a lot of critics do say, well, that actually there's a lot of talk, there's lots of papers being written, there's lots of conferences, but there's no action. So do you think there is enough being done to truly get the industry to share their data and embrace collaboration?
I definitely think there is, and I definitely think I can feel the snowball effect happening. And for those people that I think it's just talk, they just clearly haven't really experimented with the tools. So like just a few things that I've played with, and like I say, I'm no expert, I am an apprentice. I've created a scenario modeling tool on Streamlit using Python. I've created a GPT to help our apprentices create their end of year projects. We've created a schedule health tool generated from ChatGPT Python code. We've created comms plans. We've created outlines for meetings and strategies. And that is just a handful of things that we've done. Oh, and we've got a LLM trained in our PM process on our dev network, which is really knowledgeable about all of our processes. It's like having an SME just on your shoulder. So we have just started. That is literally 12 months. And we've just kind of starting to play around. I've now got someone that's dedicated to project analytics in my team. Got more apprentices on the apprenticeship, and we are just getting started, but already it's been phenomenal. And like I said, we are just embryonic in what we're doing, and it's just it's amazing.
Yeah, but it just goes to show what you can achieve in 12 months. And I'm sure I don't want to be belittle it, because I'm sure a lot of hard work's gone into that. But you can go from a standing start to that.
Absolutely.
And I love the way you just, by the way, and we just did this massive, but that it's totally possible. And I can relate to that as well. I think when you get stuck into this, you use the word snowball. It can snowball very, very quickly, because one solution or one kind of light bulb moment very quickly leads to another. Because you almost think, oh, I'm doing that. that particular, I'm trying to solve that particular problem, and at the same time you're already thinking about, oh well, I could do that next, and it's very hard to slow yourself down and try and focus. Sometimes I find that the biggest challenge, but it's fantastic to hear the strides you made. Well, we've come to the end of the podcast. We always like to give our guests the sort of final word. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say or cover, or anything you want to bring anyone's attention to, but now's your chance. If you do, if you don't, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I would just encourage people to get involved in any way you can. Have a play around on ChatGPT, like come to a hack, see some of these tools in action, kind of join a team, try and solve a problem, kind of do it learn from actually doing it. I'd thoroughly recommend the apprenticeship. I've learned so much stuff. You can find out more about that through following me or looking on Projecting Success, their website. But just get involved and just try and make a difference in any way you can, because it's really exciting and you'll have a great amount of fun doing it as well. So yeah, just get involved. That's what I leave people with.
Love it. And I absolutely concur with what you say. And we will put the details of the apprenticeships on the show notes as well. And I'm sure, both myself and David, if anyone wants to get in touch and get more information about the apprenticeships and what they involve, or if you want to come along to the next hackathon, I'm not sure if that's fully in the diary yet, but if it is, I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Shortly it will be organised.
Shortly, yeah. So we'll as soon as we know, that will go into the newsletter and into the podcast. So stay tuned to find out more about that. But I mean, what can I say, David? I knew it would be a fantastic conversation, and you lived up to the hype. So
thanks, James.
I will definitely be taking you up on a 2025 update at some point. But
really,
all I can say.
Yeah, really glad to be back, James. Really enjoyed it. And I just want to thank you, James. Obviously, you don't see it this way, but you were one of the people that inspired me to get involved in data analytics. Generally humbled to be here talking to you tonight after kind of meeting you kind of just over a year ago. And yeah, I just want to thank you for all you're doing to kind of share your knowledge with the whole profession as well. So a really big fan of you as well, James. So.
That means a lot, David. And I'm so pleased to be working with you on the sort of project data analytics sort of world.
Yeah,
I don't know what you call it, the task force and the coalition and the community. There's Project Data Analytics world. Long may it continue, and I wish you all success for 2025 as well. And I hope you and your family have a wonderful Christmas. But until then,
too, James.
We'll see you next year.
Yeah, take care. Thanks, James.
Project Flux is here.
Just want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Construct AI. For anyone interested in looking at Construct AI, the link's in our show notes. There's a free tier that you can play around with. Yoshi and I have been using it for a good year since it was originally launched, and we get a huge amount of value out of it. So I thoroughly encourage everyone to go onto the Construct AI site and have a play around.
Cool. And guys, before we sign off, please don't forget to share, follow, and like all of our stuff. So that helps us to engage with you and understand a bit more about what you want so we can bring it to your doorstep as early as possible.